What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we leave a chaotic week. Nothing astronomical happened overnight. It was peaceful. It was calm. I was too nervous. I checked my phone every 15 minutes, like probably the rest of us, waiting for the next chaos to unveil, and it did not. But that's okay because we've got wide receivers to talk about, a new name that may be on the market that the Pittsburgh Steelers could approach, especially if they are looking for a reliable veteran as a bridge player. Tee Higgins over under in value, and where we put the pin in max for the Pittsburgh Steelers to add the Cincinnati Bengals star. And maybe Pittsburgh goes out to Baltimore, makes a friendly phone call, and says, hey, you want to come help our offensive line? Leave our biggest rival and come to your second AFC North team here and probably be a star for what the Steelers are looking at as a rebuild to their offense. We're diving into all that plus more. It's a beautiful one today in the Berg. Happy Valentine's Day to all who celebrate. And Nick, I'll ask as I do every day, how you feel, my friend?
You know I'm always feeling good on a Friday. It's exciting. It's close to the weekend, and we got a quiet Thursday night. So with that in mind, it feels like we're going to get a news dump on Friday. But besides that, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, a news dump would stink.
Yeah,
a Friday afternoon news dump. It's Fridays are wild when it comes to news dumps because they come and they're hot and they're heavy and they're crazy. And they always come just at the point where you're starting to settle into it's Friday afternoon. We're there. We've made it. You know, that 12:30, 1 o'clock era, it comes by and you're sitting there going, whoo, baby, we are in the afternoon. It is PM at the end of that clock. And then all of a sudden, everything sets on fire. Your world turns to chaos. It's a good time. It's a good time. That's what we're here for. It's what we do this for. It is the best adrenaline rush I think a person could ask for. But for right now, we'll talk some wide receivers. We'll start with a name out of Seattle that has been brought up to many teams' attention. I think is a very hot topic of conversation right now because the Seattle Seahawks are looking at him and saying, maybe it's time to move on. When asked about the situation, Seahawks head coach said, I don't know. We'll address it in a month, whether or not Tyler Lockett, multiple-time All-Pro, is going to return to the Seahawks or be let go and sent into free agency. He's 32 years old. He's coming off a season where he started 14 out of 17 games. He had 600 yards and 2 touchdowns. The year before that, it was just under 900 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, I believe. Again, he's 32, but he is a guy who's had 4, 5, I believe, 1,000-yard seasons in the NFL, has made his name, has at least 3 all-pro odds, is a dude who's won a Super Bowl, who was the guy for Russell Wilson for a long time, and now may be the guy for Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I was waiting for the phone call that said, hey, the Steelers are signing Ben Roethlisberger, got him out of retirement. At least that's what the reports say. Who knows who his quarterback's going to be, but he's been a very reliable set of hands. I think it fits the mold of a Cooper Kupp. It fits the mold maybe of a Deebo Samuel, or at least Deebo's walking that line of a veteran bridge player who probably doesn't come with any more upside than you already know he has, but whose ceiling is probably high enough to feel comfortable with the situation, is a player who is going to start or at bare minimum be a third off the bench, who you're going to rely on in those big moments, and to be a steady set of hands, a steady option for possibly a younger option in Justin Fields at quarterback. I don't hate the idea. I honestly think it might work for the Steelers and where they are and what they're trying to do at some point. And I know that everybody sees this in different lights, but if you are looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers right now and saying they need to go young, they need to be a team that builds for the future, I am all on board with that. But you have to take your excess money and make some decisions to say we need veterans as well. A team can't be all rookies. It can't be all players under 25 years old. That never works out. And when it does, it takes a little while. The Eagles are a prime example of this. They have a ton of young guys and those core veterans that you need pretty much on every level. The Steelers don't have a lot of those veterans on the offensive side of the ball. They need those veterans on the offensive side of the ball. I think a Tyler Lockett might fit that mold. I'm not all in on Tyler Lockett. The money plays a big role in here. But I do think Tyler Lockett moves up a list if he does become available for the Steelers. I don't think he passes Chris Godwin or Tee Higgins or Darius Slayton, but I do think he surpasses names like Deebo Samuel. He surpasses names like Amari Cooper. Anybody who you could look at and say, reliable, great. But what's the upside? I think Tyler Lockett's upside currently is better than all of them, maybe floating around the same mark as Cooper Kupp and brings a good set of hands. Your thoughts on a name we haven't mentioned here in Tyler Lockett?
Yeah, if he is truly for sale, I think it's a name that immediately becomes top 5 option for the Steelers, especially because of something you didn't mention there is he fits the exact mold of a Calvin Austin, maybe not a Roman Wilson, because Wilson, you would imagine, is going to play the majority of his snaps from the inside. Tyler Lockett is an undersized receiver that a lot of people are probably just going to, because of his size, peg as, hey, he's a slot guy, but he's not. He's an undersized outside receiver, and that's exactly what Calvin Austin is as well. Everybody tries to put him in a box as saying is a slot receiver. He's just an inside the receiver. Calvin Austin is an outside receiver. So bringing in a guy like Lockett, somebody who had to make it work with his size and did it at a very high level for a very long time, would help Calvin Austin. I think it would help Roman Wilson as well, because Lockett is predicated on route running and getting open and creating separation that way. So I like that for that reason. And I also like the fact that while his numbers have dipped, it's mainly because he's been replaced in the order in Seattle. It's not that maybe age has caught up to him a little bit, but more so, it's probably that JSN has swapped with him when it comes to number 2 versus number 3 receiver in Seattle. So I like him as a top 5 option. I think it's, again, when you're looking at pure performance, I still would rather take Cooper Kupp, considering the age is the same and the money is the same. I think Cooper Kupp has a little bit more to give when it comes to his solo performance. But I think as far as what you can do for the rest of the room, I do like Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I agree. Cooper Kupp's my guy if you could get him for a 5th round pick or less. If you go higher than that and your options are Tyler Lockett in free agency and you keep a 4th round pick or Cooper Kupp, I think I'd go Tyler Lockett. But I agree with you that Cooper Kupp still stands as the guy that brings and adds the most value of the veterans, like the older veterans that the Steelers can go out and acquire. I also think he helps with these guys. But Tyler Lockett's helped. I mean, I get it. Wide receivers don't have coaching trees, but Tyler Lockett's helped evolve DK Metcalf. He's helped take Jackson Smith-Njigba to a whole new level from year 1 to year 2. And I get he was a strong performer as a rookie. You got to credit the veterans around him, especially, I mean, you could say whatever you want about Geno Smith. Let's not sit around and act like Geno Smith is the greatest quarterback of all time and he's the reason that these wide receivers are great. The Seahawks have dealt with some issues on offense, and their wide receiver core has continued to shine. I mean, they even had, who was that, Bobo dude or something 2 years ago? Maybe last year? Some random guy that came up that was all over my Twitter timeline. For some reason, I got sucked into a Seahawks algorithm for a couple of weeks, and he was the guy.
Jake Bobo.
Jake Bobo. That's just a random name, but another name that shows that Tyler Lockett does have the capabilities of kind of advancing guys, helping guys learn. I think that's massive for Calvin Austin. I think it's massive for Roman Wilson, who I think some people have written off in this equation, when realistically he is the only piece right now that you look at as the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who has a long-term chance of sticking around. That could be big. I like Cooper Kupp. I like Tyler Lockett, though. I think he fits in that mold. I categorize people. You know, people will ask, who are your top options? Who's this? Who's that? Tee Higgins stands in a class of his own. He is the guy. You go get the guy. But I think Darius Slayton, I think Christian Kirk kind of sit in that middle tier. And then you go to the older guys who are in their own tier. And it's Deebo, it's Cooper Kupp, it's Tyler Lockett, it's Amari Cooper. Chris Godwin would probably be somewhere in the middle of Tee Higgins and Darius Slayton in them. And I think Tyler Lockett sits second on my older veterans list. And I think he fits pretty well there. On the other side of things, you got Tee Higgins, who's a name we've talked about 150 times in the last 2 weeks, minimum. Well, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler has tossed out what he believes is the over-under for Tee Higgins. And also, there are emerging reports that the New England Patriots are ready to offer this guy massive amounts of money. And if that's the case, his price tag goes up. But also, you look at opportunity over dollars, and yeah, the Patriots sound great. Drake May sounds great. Maybe by the end of that third year, you're ready to compete for a Super Bowl. I don't know if it's coming in year 2 or year 3. Tee Higgins over under right now, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, is about $30 million. New England is expected to drive that price up. The Cincinnati Bengals are in a spot where you don't really know. For a little while, I could tell you that the Pittsburgh Steelers went from Tee Higgins is going to be a guy that we have to look at to Tee Higgins might not be available because the Bengals might lock him down and they might be actually serious about keeping him around. I don't know where they stand currently, where the NFL stands currently. It feels like we're in that weird middle ground where 2 weeks from now, when we're at the combine, things will change and you'll hear some stuff. But for right now, it's too quiet. There's not enough going on to understand where that lies. For $30 million, we'll say 32 because the Patriots are going to push that thing forward. What is your number for Tee Higgins? This is what I am willing to pay as the Pittsburgh Steelers to acquire the biggest name in the wide receiver market this offseason. I'm not talking realistic. I'm talking you are Omar Khan. This is the number they should. We could dive into realistic next, but this is the number they should be willing to hit to acquire a Tee Higgins.
I'm looking at 35. I knew it was going to be over 30 if he was leaving Cincinnati. I think I said that a couple weeks ago on the show. I said if he gets loose from Cincinnati, the number is going to be over 30. So that over-under that Fowler put out didn't surprise me in the least. But if he's coming to the Steelers, it's going to take a tax. And I think that tax gets all the way up to 35 before I put the phone down if I'm Omar Khan.
Why do you think it takes a tax? Why are you so sold on it's an AFC North team and because of that, he's going to be super loyal to the Bengals?
Because of how much he's been kind of holding out hope that the Bengals would offer him something that is at least amenable from his side. It feels like he is somebody who's been fiercely loyal to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I know that money talks, but that money in New England is going to be just as good as the money in Pittsburgh. And if he wants to come to Pittsburgh, I think he might run it up a little bit, use it to his advantage, and that's going to be the biggest reason why, is saying, hey, you're asking me to go to my biggest rival, the team that I've hated for the last couple of years. I'm going to probably try to run it up a little bit more on them and get some more money out of him. And I'm sure he'd be fine coming to Pittsburgh, but in contract negotiations, every little bit helps. And I think that that's why he'd run it up a little bit on Pittsburgh. And because I think he's going to have offers from around the league that's going to get that number to go up a little bit higher too.
Okay. I hear where you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I think 35 is a good number. I think there's a possibility that his options aren't as great everywhere else. I think there's the possibility that the Kansas City Chiefs say we need Tee Higgins. That's a real thing that could work out. And that's a total game changer. At that point, there's no competition. You're going there. I think there's a chance that the Baltimore Ravens say, screw it, let's go get Tee Higgins. They look way better than the Pittsburgh Steelers on paper. But I also think that there's a possibility that the Patriots, that the Jets, that the Giants, that all these like really bad teams are the ones hunting for him. And nobody's really eager to offer $33 million to a guy this offseason that isn't a top 10 team in the NFL draft. And because of that, I think it could work in the Steelers' favor where it is that $32 million. The AFC North thing, I think, works in two ways. Patrick Queen was super loyal to the Ravens until they pissed him off enough. And, Tee Higgins could definitely be pissed off enough if the Bengals lowball him one more time after franchise tagging him, after making it known that he didn't want to be franchise tagged the first time and pissing off Joe Burrow in the meantime. But I think the Patriots, I think Drake May is a name to watch. 35. I'm somewhat okay. Who else makes $35 million at the wide receiver market? I think that plays a role into this because it's got to be Jamar Chase makes 35. Tyreek Hill probably makes somewhere close to 35. I don't know who else would be up there that makes $30 million or $35 million a year in the NFL. Who else signed last year that would come to mind? I think that's the question.
I mean, Justin Jefferson's probably up there as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the list, but you get the picture. It is cream of the crop that's getting paid that much money. But at the end of the day, every offseason there is a new number one. And right now, Tee Higgins is the number one option, which means he could probably get paid that number one money. I understand that when you're looking at Chase, when you're looking at Jefferson, when you're looking at Tyreek Hill, these are all guys that have proven to be able to be number ones. And Tee Higgins hasn't ever been given that opportunity, but he has long been thought of as a number one sitting in a number two role. I think with the opportunity to break free from that, he's going to get paid that type of money, not to mention the fact that if you're a team like the Steelers, you're not going to pay your quarterback all that much money. At least you're not expected to pay your quarterback a crazy arm and a leg. And everybody else that's going to get big money is under contract. Like you have one big swing that you can take this offseason. I'd imagine that they would look to take it at the wide receiver position because that's the spot that everybody and their mother was saying was the biggest area of weakness for the Steelers last year.
What is the quarterback price tag if you sign Tee Higgins to $35 million a year?
15 to 20. I think that's what you're looking at. And it's
so who are the realistic options there? Just Justin Fields?
I think that's where they're going. I think that's where they're going. So yeah, I think that's what you're looking at is Justin Fields, or like I said yesterday when we gave our top 5 options for the Steelers, or you go with the rookie, which is again not great. It is a yikes, but that's how confident I am that I think they're going to go after Justin, and I think they're going to get him under 20.
I don't know if they're going to get him under 20. I think that's the price they're looking for. I don't know. I've heard the Jets are interested in Justin. I heard the Jets are very interested in Justin, actually. And I've heard the Giants are looking Justin's way as well. So there might be some competition for Justin Fields. I hope for the career sake of Justin Fields that he does not make either of those commitments. But we all know that there's that team out there that's willing to pay Deshaun Watson $250 million guaranteed, and the Jets are a team like the Jets are. Would it even surprise you in the slightest? Steelers ignored. Surprise you in the slightest if the New York Jets paid Aaron Rodgers $49 million this season and then paid Justin Fields $25? Would that even remotely shock you if they did that?
No, it wouldn't surprise me because Woody Johnson seems somebody desperate to get
Woody Johnson's son. Woody Johnson's son.
Woody Johnson's son. Either way, they seem desperate as a franchise, and I know that's rich coming from an organization who's having billboards put up about their ownership. But I think that the Jets seem and have been seeming pretty desperate as a franchise, and it goes back to going after Aaron Rodgers at 38 years old.
Yeah, I agree. I think you put yourself in a tough spot once you hit that $35 million number. But I also agree with you and the stance that you have to go make a splash. I'd be interested to know what the difference is between a Tee Higgins and a Chris Godwin, a Tee Higgins and a Darius Slayton. If it's a $15 million jump there, T, it's been real, dog. You've been good. I wish you nothing but the best. You go get somebody else and you save $15 million. If the Steelers were like, if this was the Chiefs, you pay him $35 million. There's no questions asked. You pay him 40 if that's what you really could afford and could do. The Steelers, I think it depends on where everybody else is, but I agree with you that 35 is probably the number that they're going to have to get near to go get him, especially if teams are making a big push. And there are teams with massive, the Patriots have like $180 million in cap space or something. Maybe it's 108. Maybe I read that backwards, but it's definitely triple digits. The Steelers are at 52 before they touch anything, and they need to sign a quarterback. That's a different situation. The money is not necessarily all there. You are going to save some. I would imagine the Steelers are at 75 just with cuts and stuff before they actually go into free agency. I still think 75, you got to be thinking what's option B before you're giving up that money if you're the Steelers.
Yeah, and you also have to remember they were willing to pay Brandon Ayuk over $30 million all of last offseason. What's an extra $2 or $3 million? Like, you can't sign Michael Pruitt back to the roster next year. Like, that to get a top tier wide receiver, I think is something the Steelers would do every single day.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that they are desperate enough. I don't know if it makes sense, but I think that they are desperate enough. I'm interested to know what the quarterback market is, because that sets everything off. You know, if you ain't Justin for $15 million a year, dude, you could go sign everybody. Who cares? Just go get Tee Higgins, go get Tyler Lockett, trade for Cooper Kupp, go sign Javon Hargraves and whoever else is out there. Go ink a corner, and then maybe go get Ronnie Stanley, who's the last guy we're going to talk about today. Fansided dropped an interesting tidbit yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that they believe the Pittsburgh Steelers could be in the hunt for the Baltimore Ravens star offensive tackle, Ronnie Stanley. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 in about a month. You look at him as a dude who is one of the biggest, maybe top 3 biggest names at the tackle position, would come in here and be the best player that they have on the offensive line, without question. Teams up with another veteran, Isaac Seumalo, at left guard. Probably leaves plenty of question marks for Broderick Jones, but there are arguments to be made for certain players to say worth the risk of kind of ignoring Broderick. I don't know if Ronnie Stanley's it, but I'm curious in your response here, your thoughts on the situation. I would imagine he's a $20 million a year offensive tackle, somewhere right there. Don't get me wrong. If you're going to spend money anywhere, spend it in the trenches every time. There should be no debates on where the Steelers' money should go or any team's money should go. It is in the trenches. But the Steelers have also built the trenches. They've drafted the trenches. They've spent good investments on the trenches, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So at that point, you have an actual debate of Broderick versus a name like Ronnie Stanley. I mean, is he worth it? Is he a name that you go out and get if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, or at least consider?
It certainly helps your offensive line next year. I think Ronnie Stanley, even at 32 years old, which is what I think he'll be, or 31 years old, whatever.
31 by the season.
Going into the season, I think if you just put him on that left side of the line next to Isaac Seumalo, your offensive line is obviously going to be better day one. It does still bother me that you drafted in the first round, you traded up in the first round for a left tackle, and you would be now 3 years going into the final year of that left tackle. Well, I guess including the 5th-year option, the 4th year of that left tackle's career, and have yet to give him a real shot at left tackle. I think that would bother me a little bit, but at the same time, you look at Ronnie Stanley, he's a guy that gave up 2 sacks all of last year. Like, you immediately get better. And we've talked about 3 players on this episode. That is your only move. If you're spending $20 million on a left tackle, that's your splash move. Everything else has to be, peanuts, has to be, value moves the rest of the offseason. So do you want to build it in the trenches? Some people would say yes. I think I've agreed with that. But I also think that if you give Broderick an opportunity, he will get better on the left side. So I'd like to see Broderick get a chance, but it's hard to turn down Ronnie Stanley at $20 million because you're getting an anchor on the left side of your line, and that the back end of your line, the back end of your quarterback is always going to be protected.
Yeah. I mean, there is not a name out there who's a better option than Ronnie Stanley. And to bring him over from Baltimore, I mean, you just screwed the Ravens, who now have to figure out who's going to protect the blind side of Lamar Jackson, and just defended your quarterback better than you possibly can. I hear the Broderick argument. I think I stand with the Broderick argument. Like, you got to give your guy a shot. There's a 10-year age gap there. You have to take that into account. If Broderick works out, you still have his entire career to build and see if this guy could turn into Ronnie Stanley. You're going to get Ronnie Stanley for another 2 years before he's walking away from the game completely, or looking for somewhere else to go win a Super Bowl and sail off into the sunset at the end of his NFL career. And then you're right back to square one. Where do you go from there? How do you figure this out? I think that is a massive question that you have to bring into account. But it is Ronnie Stanley, man. Like, it depends on where the Steelers realistically see themselves, or I guess where we realistically see the Steelers, because we will see them much more realistic than anybody in that building. In the next 2 years, if you believe that you could build a team good enough to win a Super Bowl, you go after a guy like Ronnie Stanley because, you're not going to take that risk at such an important position. At the same time, if you don't see that, if you say they could, it's a possibility, but chances are it's not going to happen. Broderick Jones is the 10 times better move because if he works out, you have just found a guy that could be there for 10 years. And that's your window goes from 2 years to 10 to try to figure this out and win a Super Bowl. If your offensive line is built, which that's what the Steelers have done, they've built an offensive line that at some point is going to cost $1 billion. But that's okay because you spend money on your offensive line. You do what the Eagles do and don't let these guys ever leave. If you could do that, if that's what you've just done, is you have that set of guys, that means you have 10 years, roughly, to figure out everything else. So that is the best starting point for any team. I mean, Ben, when he was putting up 40 points a game and the Killer Bees were the greatest thing on turf, nobody appreciated the Steelers' offensive line the way that they should because that offensive line was around forever. It was phenomenal for years on end. And Ben did crazy Ben things, but that offensive line was wild. And that is such an underappreciated part to a team. If you could do that, I just think it favors Broderick. But this is his last shot. I mean, we also have to acknowledge that in the same conversation. If it doesn't work out this year, he's gone. You can't even he may be a swing tackle, great for the final year of his deal, but you don't go into year 4 thinking we're going to give him one more shot. I get that's what they did with Dan Moore. I think you learn from your mistakes and say, this hasn't been the case. Mason McCormick and Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier look phenomenal. Broderick looks terrible. At that point, you just got to say, okay, we got to figure this out. We'll trade him while we have some value there and you move on. But for right now, I think I agree with you. I think I'd go Broderick over Ronnie Stanley in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the fact that you have put so much into Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
And you've never let him really flourish in the position that he was great at Georgia. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, some guys aren't born to be a swing tackle. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, Broderick was so bad. Why would you even give Broderick a chance? It's like, well, if it's so easy to switch sides, why didn't Dan Moore?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't. Because he can't do it. Because he would be worse than Broderick. So for everybody that likes to bury Broderick, I think you have to see him at his natural position because it does make a difference. And I think the Steelers are thinking the same way. I don't think they would go out and sign a Ronnie Stanley for 2 years or for $20 million for however many years. But I think that I'm interested to see how it plays out next season. Let's just say that. It's one of the things I'm keeping my eye on the most from day one of OTAs throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm interested to see if the evolution is there because remember, I mean, early in training camp, I was saying Troy Fautanu stinks. I was big on the Troy's getting smoked by TJ out here. It looks bad. And I was not the only one. I would stand there on the sidelines and sometimes even fans behind me would be like, man, the rookie's not really looking good right now. And I'm like, yep, I've been saying that for weeks, dude. Weeks. Yeah. And then he turned out to be phenomenal. So I am interested to see the evolution. I mean, that seemed to happen with everybody. I don't know what it is about Latrobe, man, but you show up, you are not good. And by the time you leave, you're great. Justin Fields, Troy Fautanu, a couple others in the making there. Or it goes the complete opposite way. I remember the year James Pierre looked like the superstar corner the Steelers have been missing forever. Mm-hmm. He was it. Picked off Ben twice in one day, cried in a press conference afterwards, speaking about the challenges of getting here. I was like, dude, this is the guy. They just found the next Darrelle Revis. And, well, here we are. Here we are today. All right. Ronnie Stanley, a no-go. Tyler Lockett and Tee Higgins, things to consider for the Pittsburgh Steelers as we head into the weekend. Let's dive into your questions. We're going to close out the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to dive into everything you guys got, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Well, we got more of a comment, more of a shout out, and that's from Fear the Beard Collectibles, who that logo looks a little familiar. Says Noah, nice shirt, appreciate it, pal.
Hey, appreciate you. I saw your Instagram post this morning, or your Instagram story of the LeBron James card this morning, and said, I totally forgot that I have that shirt sitting in my closet. So I ran up and put it on, and here we are. Appreciate you. For anybody who doesn't know, go check out Fear the Beard Collectibles on Instagram. It's You could get lost down a wormhole there of some pretty cool cards.
All right, let's go over to Egyptian Roughneck, who says, what about Joel Bonito from the Browns? Very strong offensive lineman.
Yeah, Joel Bonito is a good option. I think he's too old. He's got to be pushing 33 at this point, something in that neighborhood, to go out and consider as a guy that you're going to sign. And again, it's like the Ronnie Stanley thing. It's a risk-reward situation. What does it take away from Broderick? What does it add to the offense? I think it adds enough to the offense, but I think it takes too much away from Broderick for a guy that you might get for a year. I've also been told that he might retire if Myles Garrett gets traded because he just doesn't want to be there as part of a rebuild. So if Cleveland can't sit there and convince everybody that they're going to be the next Washington Commanders, he might be gone. And I don't think he wants to go anywhere else.
Let's go to Madeline, who says, when do you think we start signing guys like Jaylen Warren, Justin Fields, and Dante Jackson?
Jaylen Warren will happen probably just before free agency, I would imagine. He's a tender, so you don't have to actually negotiate with him. You're just going to place a tender on him. They're going to consider what tender they want to place on him. Obviously, the higher tender, the more expensive. Like if you place a first-round tender on a guy, you're paying the most money for him. But also, if somebody else signs him, you get a first-round pick, which is huge. I would imagine they're going to debate that. They're going to work with Najee Harris to see what that turns out to be before they decide on the Jaylen Warren situation. Dante Jackson, I am going to guess happens during free agency. I don't see a sense of urgency with that. The cornerback market is a little bit bigger than people expected it to be. And because of that, they'll probably want to at least have phone calls and conversations with agents about guys like Byron Murphy or DJ Reed or Tre'Davious Ward out of San Francisco, obviously Dante Jackson, and maybe a couple others. And they'll decide there. Justin Fields, I have no idea. If I had to guess when a quarterback solution is made, it is probably the week before free agency starts. So like the end of the first week of March, somewhere in that neighborhood is when I would imagine we get some news there. If it's going to be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, if it doesn't happen by then, here we go, all aboard the train because it's about to get crazy.
Yeah, that'll be an even busier week of speculation if that goes by.
It would be nuts. It would be absolutely insane. If we head into free agency and the Steelers have not signed a quarterback, do not sleep. Do not plan on sleeping because it will happen at any time. And I'm telling you, y'all will miss it. It will get crazy.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, do you guys think the NFLPA would agree to 18 games if player contracts become fully guaranteed?
No, because they get to the NFLPA is going to agree on 18 game contracts no matter what. To be very honest, like the CBA is so complex and such a giant negotiation that it's going to happen. Like I think step one is 2 buys. They'll implement 2 bye weeks and then they'll add an 18th game. Players won't be satisfied, but that'll be enough because the NFL at the end of the day is going to sit there and say some way or another, we're going to make this happen. It's really just a matter of you guys. Like, what are you willing to take in return? Because we could give you very little in return, or we can at least give you something and make it look good. That extra bye week is going to be it. Fully guaranteed contracts will not happen in the NFL.
No. The owners that would be the last thing the owners would allow to happen.
Yeah, no chance. That's too much money and there's too many injuries. It just couldn't happen.
All right, let's go to American Steel, who says, what do you think about Kenny Pickett coming back? I mean, after all, Tomlin loves the Super Bowl winning quarterback, doesn't he? And then says, in quotes, sarcasm, of course.
Of course. He does love a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I think Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers bridge, all 64 of them or whatever there are, burned right to the ground, and none of them exist. I don't think I would be shocked if Kenny Pickett ever steps foot in the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the facility ever again. I could see him avoiding the indoor just because it's shared by both to get into just the pit side. I could see that happening. I don't think Kenny Pickett's ever going to dress in black and gold again.
I don't want to hold this against you because I know you weren't born and raised in Pittsburgh, but you've been there a long time. You do know there's more than 64 bridges.
Yeah,
right?
There's like 100 and some, right?
There's 450 or something like that.
That's
You don't
nuts,
get called the
actually.
city of bridges for 100 bridges. You gotta get a little ridiculous.
450. There's no chance half of those are safe. There's no chance
Yeah,
half of those are safe.
yeah, probably.
Wow. Every one of them burned. In Kenny's Picket Eyes, there are none. There
Yeah.
are none.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, with the Four Nations game last night, I have to ask, which Mike is the better head coach, Tomlin or Sullivan?
No, it's Tomlin. Come on. I get what we're saying, and that was great. Great game. Finland is not the team to beat. Let's wait. Let's wait it out here. It was a great shout out, Mike Sullivan. Let's look at the Penguins. Okay. Let's look at what he did there versus what he does with the Penguins. I would guess it's Mike Tomlin. I could be wrong here. You're the hockey guy, but I would say it's Mike Tomlin.
It's kind of hard because they're in the same boat. They're both coaches that had a lot of success early in their career and haven't had it later in their career, and probably could both use a fresh start. So
yes,
I don't know. I think until we see one of them with a different team, and this doesn't count because this is the best Team USA
I was going to
ever be put on the ice. So this doesn't count. Until we see that, I don't think we could judge because both of them are right now the same level of mediocre.
I will say that chances are Sullivan does get that extra star, that fresh start, though. Tomlin never does. So by the end of this, it probably will be Sullivan.
Probably. Let's go to Madeline again, who says, who is one veteran that you would love to see on the Steelers?
Across the board and from any team, free agent. I mean, Tee Higgins is the guy. I think without question, Tee Higgins is the guy. That is the name for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. If I had to list all free agents, he is the name that I think the Steelers should go get. It would be Tee Higgins.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, I got another question here. If you don't mind sharing, how old are you lads, and when did you start watching Steelers football? I'm 28 and started in 2004 preseason, thanks to my dad.
I am 29, and probably about 2002, somewhere around there is when I remember them. Tommy Maddox, dude. My first jersey ever was I loved Tommy Maddox for some reason, and Cordell Stewart. I was a big Cordell Stewart guy. I was a big Cordell Stewart guy in Chicago too, because my uncle was a Bears fan, and I was like, dude, he's gonna be so good. So yeah, I'd say about 2002.
Yeah, I was around the same. I was 20. I mean, I am 28 years old, and it was around the same time because I do remember vague memories of watching Tommy Maddox and my dad not being very happy at the television.
Dude, all I remember are games like him beating the Browns. Me going like, let's go. Yeah, I was at karate practice when that happened. I remember it vividly. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. Let's go to Madeline again, who says, sorry for all the questions, which is not a problem at all. That's what we're here for. But you said something about Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I think he would fit the mold, and a dude is a touchdown machine, would be very cheap. What do you think about adding him?
He would be very cheap. I don't anticipate. We've got a couple of buddies that work with the Tennessee Titans, that cover the Tennessee Titans, and from everything I've heard, I don't expect him to hit free agency. He's probably going to stick around in Tennessee. He is good. I don't think he upgrades the team the way that they need to upgrade. That's my thing, is it's not the year to take a shot on a guy who's cheap and who has some upside. It's the year to take a shot on a guy who is going to be great and is going to cost a little bit of money, because you have those players. You have the Calvin Austin, you have the Roman Wilson, you have those guys in place. You need the big hitters, the heavy guys. Maybe that's George and somebody else. Maybe that's somebody else. Who knows? But I like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, but I don't think he fits what the Steelers are looking for in terms of upside.
Yeah, it feels like he's another number 3 right now, a good number 3, but a number 3 nonetheless. Yeah. And I think the Steelers need a number 2 or higher.
Yes, agreed.
Let's go to Egyptian Roughneck, who says, officially unpacked the last movie box. Love being in Pennsylvania. Noah, you got to let me buy you a drink.
I appreciate it. You let me know when things are available. I head to the combine next week, but I'm always down for a little weekend cocktail. So you let me know.
Let's go to Madeline again, who gives a keep trade cut here. George Pickens, DJ Moore, or Garrett Wilson?
Keep trade cut. I'm keeping Garrett Wilson. I'm trading George Pickens, and I'm cutting DJ Moore. Simply because Garrett Wilson's got the most upside. He is the guy. George Pickens has the most trade value, I would guess. and DJ Moore is too expensive.
Fair enough. Let's go to Aaron Griffith, who says, love the podcast. Have you heard any rumors on when the Ireland game is going to be?
Yeah, I've heard week 4. I don't know what the date is going to be, but I've heard week 4. I haven't heard that from enough people or even multiple people. I've heard that from one source. I try to verify things before I start spewing it to the public. I have heard it's Green Bay. I am fairly confident it's Green Bay. And then I would guess week 4. But again, don't go booking tickets. Not off this.
Let's go to Edward White, who says, if the Steelers go out and get Tyler Lockett, does that eliminate the opportunity to draft Emeka Egbuka?
No, I don't think so. I think any veteran wide receiver leaves the door open for the Steelers to still use a first-round pick on a wide receiver. Depends on the veteran, like the older veterans. Maybe not Debo, because Debo's only 29, and maybe you think you could, get some more out of him. But Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett, maybe even Amari Cooper, yes, I would still say that door is very much so open and that they would pursue a first-round pick if the guy's there and it's the best pick. If there wouldn't be a sense of urgency to go get your wide receiver in the first round. But if Emeka Egbuka is sitting there and there's no other name that you're saying they're all below him, I could see it happening.
Let's go to John, who says, what's yours and Nick's favorite section to sit in at Heinz Field? Also, do y'all prefer nosebleeds or along the sideline? And yes, I still call it Heinz Field.
I also still call it Heinz Field. To be honest, I've sat in the press box for the last 6 years, so I'm a bad person to pick this. But I mean, the sideline's awesome, but if you're going price per seat, like the value versus what you're seeing, there is no bad seat. Like Heinz Field is filled with great seats. Sometimes they're freezing cold depending on what way the wind's blowing, but they're all pretty good seats. I'm not like a nosebleeds guy. I'm a nosebleeds near the exit so that you could sneak out and do what you got to do in the, whether it's food, a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever, and get back to your seats. But I do think the vibes are better up there. I do.
Let's go to Dalton, who says, start bench cut a Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, and Peyton Wilson. And I do know that they use 2 inside linebackers, but humor me on this one.
Okay. A Landon, Patrick, Peyton Wilson. Dude, people are going to get mad at me for this. I'm going Patrick Queen. You're starting Patrick Queen. Like, I'm sorry. He's got the most upside of all of these guys. He could be a superstar inside linebacker if he clicks. It's easily Patrick Queen. Bench is Peyton Wilson. And which sucks because I love Landon, dude. He's a good dude. He's a great player. He's gonna somehow see this and call me out at lunch or something. He's done it before. It scares me, but I'm cutting Landon in this trio. I'm going Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Landon Roberts.
Let's go to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, do we sign a guard like Will Freeze in free agency? Mason McCormick struggled at the end of the year. I think Freeze would significantly upgrade the line and help Troy Fautanu. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he would upgrade the line, but just like the Ronnie Stanley thing, you have to weigh where you're headed versus where you are right now. I don't think hindering development of a guy like Mason McCormick, who I think played well for the position that he was placed in and the expectations heading into the year, is a move that I would support, only because it just seems like, I don't know, like him and Zach Frazier right now are the two that currently you look at and say this could work. Like these guys could work out really well for the Steelers. McCormick shouldn't have been on the field at all last season. The fact that he was just desperation, and the fact that at times he played pretty well was, I think, very significant. So I don't know if I'd be for a guard. If you want to get a cheaper guard in Will Fries that maybe, costs a little bit of money, but probably less than Isaac Seumalo, maybe. I don't know what Fries' market value is going to be. I'd be okay with that if that's the way that you'd like to go.
Vibing with the Dogs has another question here. Should we bring back Nate Herbig or Ryan McCollum to back up Zach Frazier?
If I had to guess, Ryan McCollum will be the name that comes back. He played well last year. Like, Ryan McCollum played some games, and there was never a moment where you said he stinks. So I would say Ryan McCollum is is my guess to return. Nate Herbig may be on a cheap deal, but I also think that that's kind of run its course.
Let's go to Drew, who says, Noah, what Steelers Funko Pop is that in the background?
Mean Joe Green is back there. I was debating between him and Terry Bradshaw, but we went Mean Joe Green.
All right, let's go to Everyday, who says, I have a question for you guys. What are your thoughts on the virtual reality stuff that Sam Darnold uses during the offseason last year that helped him because he used this offseason on fields?
Look it, I'll tell you this. I have the MetaQuest. I was talking about it yesterday. The MetaQuest with the golf thing. I don't know if it helps me, but it sure feels like I'm golfing a lot better than I was last season. I like the virtual reality stuff. I think it's gotten so real, and the NFL teams were able to use it successfully this year that it's different. Like it used to be, it used to be a camera that they'd strap to the top of your helmet. And I remember guys telling me, like, you'd go back and watch the film and it'd just be like this the whole time, and you'd have no idea what you were watching. I think it works. I think they should implement it. I would imagine they start to. You know, you got a guy like Tom Arth who is a newer coach. I would imagine they start putting that into place.
Yeah, and once it starts working more than once, the NFL's a copycat league. So everybody's going to start implementing it, especially with young quarterbacks. I mean, I think Jaden Daniels also used that, and you saw the results there. So I think every team in the NFL is going to start to, at the very least, kind of keep an eye on that and think about implementing it. And then eventually all 32 teams will implement that and probably make it mandatory for their guys in the offseason.
Yeah, you'll see all guys just like walking into training camp with the MetaQuest thing. I'm just like, all right, there they are. Cool. But yeah, I would imagine.
Let's go to Madeline again, who says, do you think if we miss out on a first-round wide receiver, there's still enough talent to grab a wide receiver in later rounds?
I think there's some, but not enough, not a lot. I think at that point you're going to the third or maybe the fourth round to try to take a flyer on somebody. But I also think that that's why it's so important to have somebody in place during free agency, whether that's a trade for Cooper Kupp, whether that's a trade for Debo, whether that's Tyler Lockett or Tee Higgins or whoever. I think that's why it's so important, so critical to make that move, because you can't go into the last thing anybody wants to see is the Steelers head into the draft with the same roster they have right now. And everybody going, all right, well, it's either first round or nothing. And then somehow they walk out of there without a wide receiver that's a starter day one. I think that's scary. So I don't think there's enough talent to say this is a definite starter or somebody who's even going to play his rookie season. I think at best you're getting a Roman Wilson. You have to get somebody in free agency. That's my thoughts.
All right, let's go to Grayson, who says, I got one last question for you boys. Any update on Cole Holcomb?
Cole Holcomb posted something on his Instagram, his Twitter or something yesterday. I caught it of him working out. I don't know. Cole Holcomb came back by the end of the season, and I think that's pretty significant. So we'll see. No updates right now, but you know, I hope he's still thinking of us the way we are him.
Let's go back to Egyptian Roughneck. Appreciate you. Says, by the way, from a couple weeks ago, I do play on all Madden. What's it going to take for you and me to play a game of Madden? I'll let you stream it. LOL.
I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't play on all Madden. I do once in a while, but then I get pissed off because I lose so much that I have to go back. I don't think I could do that. Like if you're winning 100 and whatever to whatever it was the other day, and you're on all Madden, you're going to beat me by 70. And I can't rage quit in front of people. It's not professional. So I can't do. I can't do that for my own ego.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, what's more likely, the Steelers move up or they move back in the draft?
They move up, I would guess. You know, I don't think they move back. It's rare that the Steelers move back. You know, they don't often do that. They talk about doing it every year, and then they almost never do it. They do move up every once in a while, and if a guy like Ashton Genty, if a guy like Will Johnson, if a guy like one of these defensive linemen start moving backwards, the Steelers could say, what's it going to cost to move up to 16, 17, 18, 19, you know, even 20? That's I think much more realistic than moving back. They talk about it every year. They lay out their plans and how they would set themselves up to move back, and then they don't. So I would guess moving up.
All right, let's go to J Chaps Snacks Review, who says, what does it take for the Steelers to be real Super Bowl contenders next season?
A lot. I think too much. You need a running back. You need to revamp your wide receiver core. You need a quarterback who could win you a Super Bowl, which is a massive question to ask. You need your offensive line to take not just a step forward. I'm talking a serious, massive step forward. You need your defensive line to be reshaped. You need Patrick Queen to work out very well. You need a corner and for Joey Porter Jr. to go back to what he looked like as a rookie, not a sophomore. You need Minkah Fitzpatrick to be Minkah Fitzpatrick and not what we've seen the last 3 seasons. And then you got to hope that TJ figures out how to play on the left side or the right side. Yeah, the left side, because that will that's almost all it's going to take. And then you need Arthur Smith to be good and for everybody to play well. That's what it's going to. It's a lot. I think it's too much, but if you want to lay it all out there, that's what it's going to take.
Let's go to Nicolo, who says, who are you most excited to see at the Combine next week?
Emeka Egbuka is a big one. All of the running backs, very excited to see all the running backs, both good and bad. Like Ashton Genty is not the fastest guy in the world, and I think there's a chance he runs like a low 4.4. And then what are you talking? Like, you going to draft a guy who ran a low 4.4 at 10? No. Maybe you start thinking he's a real possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm super pumped to see some of these corners in Ben Morrison. I don't know if Revel, Revel is going to participate because of the ACL. If he is, I'm pumped about that one. I'm not really pumped about these quarterbacks, but let's see Jackson Dart out there, I guess. Let's see Riley Leonard or Will Howard. We'll play that and take that into consideration. And then the defensive linemen. I'm always pumped about the defensive linemen because those are the guys that when you run a 4.4 at 320 pounds, you become a first-round pick, and it happens every year. So, and the 40-yard dash is the most exciting thing in the NFL Combine. Let's not act like it's not. So, I would say I'm excited for a lot, but those specific positions and guys is who I'm most excited for.
Let's go to Jay Stokes, who says, what's up with Xavier Howard? Could he be a viable number 2 corner option to pair along with JPJ, or is he chalked?
I don't know if he's chalked, but he's in some trouble, I think, or at least there's like strange allegations or something going on with him that I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in. He got a tryout somewhere late in the season last year. Maybe it was Dallas. Just doesn't feel like a name the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to actually bring in and test out because of what happened last offseason.
All right, let's go to Egyptian Roughneck again, who says, do we re-sign Waitman or do we stick with Cameron Johnston next year?
If Cameron Johnston's healthy, you stick with Cameron Johnston. That guy's a stud. That's who you brought in to be the guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Corliss Waitman is brought back just because they don't know if Cameron Johnston's going to be available by the start of the season or during the season at all. At that point, you probably move on from him. But if not, you go with Cameron Johnston. He's very valuable. He actually helps with the receiving game a ton, with the punt return game a ton. He's very good at breaking down film there and helping guys like Calvin Austin. So I would guess Cameron Johnston's the move. Waitman would be the guy they bring back if Johnson isn't ready to go.
Let's go to Raymond, who says, how good do you really think Roman Wilson is or could be?
I think good. I have no idea, though. None. This is the NFL level. He's a 3rd-round pick out of Michigan who looked like an absolute monster at Michigan. This is a whole new game. Now you missed a full season. I expect him to be good. I think there are limitations and concerns with him, but he's got some serious speed. He has great twitchiness and is a good pass blocker. Like, he's got everything you want out of a wide receiver, but he's got to put it on the field. He's got to be able to play well at the NFL level, which is the biggest test. So I don't know. I view him as a guy that you must see how good he could be because you're going to waste some talent if you don't. But I'm more curious to see what types of steps he could take when he's finally healthy and on the field next season.
Let's go to J Chaps Snacks Review, who says, Noah, I just Googled Shaka Khan. Definitely not the Jags GM.
I actually have no idea who that is. Like, is that a famous
Queen
person?
of Funk.
Queen of Funk, man. Queen of I was close. Shad Khan, man. Now it will take me 4 more times, but I will I will remember that. I will remember who that is eventually. Maybe. Probably not. But when they get Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to have to. So
yeah, you're going to write it so many times in the story because
I probably will write Shaka Khan and be called out for it and then have to go back, and that's what'll happen.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back on Monday. Hopefully the chaos calms down, but you never know. Patrick Mahomes, I almost said McQueen. Patrick Mahomes may be coming to Pittsburgh over the weekend. Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady is on the table at this point. Who knows? We'll see you on Monday. Enjoy a beautiful weekend in the Berg. Peace.